Hi guys, welcome back. It's UK here with another Games I Have Played vid. Little change of space, little change of scenery, while I'm rearranging the house and doing all sorts of strange things. Um, Today, the games I have played suddenly come to mind while I was at work the other day. Games I hadn't thought about for years, and that is Judge Dredd. Um, if you don't know, you've lived under a rock for many, many decades. Judge Dredd was originally based on a comic strip in the UK comic 2000 AD. There have been two films, one which I actually prefer, to be fair, even though it's bad, which was Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone, because at least it captured the actual look and feel, I think, of the comic strip. And the other was a more recent one with Carl Urban called Dredd, which I kind of felt didn't capture that feel at all. Pardon me. But essentially, it follows a post-apocalyptic future. Mankind is basically locked up in these giant mega cities that span continents or chunks of continents. Everyone is basically a criminal because no one has enough money, no one has enough food to feed themselves, and basically there are a group of individuals known as judges who uphold the law. It's a very, how to put it, kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of take on, well, I guess for its time, the 70s and 80s and how things were being perceived and what have you. It's very kind of silly in places. It's funny, although not funny, ha-ha, and very draconian. It's very dystopian. And back in the mid-80s, Games Workshop of Warhammer fame published a Judge Dredd role-playing game, which I have had the pleasure of playing on a few occasions during the late 80s and early 90s. Two of my friends had it, and I don't remember the system very well. I know that you were basically just judges. They did a source book where you have a side judge, and generally, it wasn't a sort of game you could play as a campaign. You were a group of rookie judges to start with, dispatched out onto the mean streets of Megacity 1. And you generally sort of just did one-off scenarios here and there. You might use the same characters again, but generally there wasn't an awful lot of linkage. Games Workshop did some scenarios, and they did a couple of long campaigns in the White Dwarf magazine. Although we never actually got to run or play those, despite the fact they were very, very interesting. And there was a second role-playing game published by Mongoose Publishing, another UK company, back in the early OOs, using the D20 system. Much like Mongoose's Babylon 5 RPG, which used the D20 system, when you leveled, you didn't really gain hit points. It wasn't like D&D, like the D&D style D20. It just basically gave you extra skill points and abilities. And a friend of mine, Big Dave, did actually run that as a very short-lived campaign, probably somewhere around about 2002. It's a very odd sort of role-playing game, as I say. You kind of have to play the over-the-top lawman. Everything is a crime, so you have to be the sort of player that can, even though it's a very comic booky sort of universe, you've got to be able to sort of like get your head around that. Most of us sort of like play role-playing games for the purposes of being the good guy or what have you. Well, there isn't a good guy in this. Even you have to be quite harsh. Don't know what that strange squeaking was there. If you heard that, harsh and very judgmental, and it's not for everybody. I remember my very first character. I was always quite lenient on sentencing on the perps. And the other players used to give me like, no, the guy should be locked up for stealing a cheeseburger. What are you talking about? It's theft. It's a crime. Um, you know, and if you've got the sort of person who can get your head into that space properly, they're actually it's quite a good fun setting, a good game. Um, One thing that comes to mind that we did enjoy was in the Games Workshop game. I forget what they call it now, sort of like a block raid. Basically, the mega cities are made up of these giant hab blocks, and they had silly names like Bobby Block, and things like that. And my friend Chris, when he ran this, used Kevin Cthulhu block, and all manner of weird stuff used to happen in Kevin Cthulhu block. Um, but one of the source books gave you rules for basically being told first thing in the morning, we're blitzing this random block. You're going to go door to door. You're going to basically search the apartments. You're going to find out what's going on. And it had like this massive random table. So you'd pick a door at random, and the GM would just roll to see what crime the occupant had committed. And nobody was innocent. Everybody in that block had committed a crime. And it might be anything from hoarding sugar to they've got the body of their dead mother dressed up in her clothes and hiding in the shower or something like that, to being a mutant. Maybe the son's got 3 arms or something, and so you're going to have to arrest the family, all of them, for harbouring a mutant, and then you're going to have to probably execute the mutant. But when you couldn't come up with a campaign sort of idea or an adventure idea, sorry, just do a block bust and go door to door and just have shits and giggles. I enjoyed it because I like the 2000 AD sort of approach to things, and the Judge Dredd comic strip. Always was well done, well illustrated, and would it work with modern gaming sort of mindsets? I don't know. I mean, the Mongoose publishing version was 20 years ago, and I do think that player and gamer tastes have changed a lot since then. Whether it would still sort of work or there'd be the interest, I don't know. But for me, the Judge Dredd games hold a lot of nostalgia, because 2000 AD was something I grew up with as a kid. I don't know. It's just one of those games that when you think about it, you remember the good times. You have a laugh. And it brings back a smile to the face, which is ultimately what a game needs to do. Anyway, did any of you guys have an experience with either of those particular games, or homebrew one if you or a GM created it? What were your experiences, thoughts? I'd be interested to hear. Pop them in the comments down below, or hit me a video response. Until next time, hit that like button if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button and that little bell icon, and I will see you in the next vid. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Good gaming.